All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. Man, big day, giant day, enormous day.
It is. It's my wife's birthday. Hey, Arlene, happy birthday. And then there's something about politics.
All right, okay, so New Hampshire primary. So not only are we gonna cover it starting at 8 o'clock Eastern, we got the normal 2-hour show for you guys today. No conversation tonight and no post game tonight. Well, we will have post game at the very end, New Hampshire coverage. Always for the members, tyt.com/join. You can also hit the join button underneath if you're watching on YouTube. Now, we're gonna have a ton of stories about Bernie and Buttigieg and Trump. And there's a kind of a Saturday night massacre happening right now in the Trump administration. And we'll tell you about that in a little bit. So tons of stuff to get to, but I'm gonna tell you just real quick, 2 polls. So Bernie in New Hampshire, that's right now, has an 8-point lead in the last poll, okay? So cross your fingers. Well, as soon as we have exit polls, which will be actually during the main show very soon, we'll share that with you guys. We'll give you breaking updates on the exit polls as we have them. And then secondly, national polling, Biden's been leading for a year straight, no more. Not only has Bernie taken the lead, last 2 polls, Bernie with an 8-point lead and a 10-point lead.
I did not see that one.
So here, it's not even here comes Bernie. Bernie's gone.
There goes Bernie.
There goes Bernie. All right, 2-2-2-2. Stay right here. Stay right here.
Whisper of he's gone.
Yeah. Okay, guys. If he wins New Hampshire, especially if he wins it big, Chris Matthews cry watches back. We'll
Careful,
do that.
Bernie.
All right, but why don't you watch it with people who actually are excited rather than everyone on cable news who will be in the middle of a Hunter S. Thompson book of fear and loathing tonight if Bernie wins. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, let's. I threw this story in first. I don't know if you're going to be that invested in it, but we're going to do it anyway. Chuck Todd has some thoughts about Bernie Sanders, but also about his supporters. Here he is.
If there's a Stop Bernie movement, that is going to be to hell will pay with the Bernie people because they are so committed.
Hey, I want to bring up something that Jonathan last put in the Bulwark today, and it was about how in Ruth, we've all been on the receiving end of the Bernie online brigade. And here's what he says. He says, no other candidate has anything like this sort of digital brown shirt brigade. I mean, except for Donald Trump. The question no one is asking is this. What if you can't win the presidency without an online mob? What if we now live in a world where having a bullying agro-social media army running around, popping anyone who sticks their head up is either an important ingredient for or a critical marker of success?
Wow.
Okay, that's
I know everybody's freaking out about this, but you saw the MAGA rally that's preparing around here. There are people coming from 3 or 4 states on that. That's real, and that is this is like Bernie.
Okay, so there's a lot of issues there.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we start with the digital brown shirts? I think that's probably where we should start.
Yeah, although I want to get to the online mob. So if you missed it, he just called the Jewish candidates' supporters brown shirts. If you don't know, brown shirts are Nazis. So now, I wouldn't go towards anti-Semitism or anything like that. I think Chuck Todd is Jewish. I didn't look it up, but so I only know that because the right wingers are lunatics and they're like they outed Jewish people in media. Anyway, but Chuck, you ought to be a little careful in comparing a major presidential candidate and maybe the first Jewish president ever. Yes, I said it. And his supporters to brown shirts. That's nuts. And one of his excuses is, well, hey, listen, I'm just quoting someone. I mean, all right, so
come on.
First of all, you're quoting a conservative columnist. Shocking they don't agree with Bernie Sanders and want to call him a Nazi. Second of all, if we're playing that game, can I quote someone calling you a Nazi and go, hey, I'm just quoting. I didn't say it. I'm just quoting people, right? So online mob. How about the mainstream media mob that attacks every progressive every time, Bernie 1,000 times? Your mob doesn't count. On your own network, Chris Matthews the other day, nearly in tears, they're gonna take me to Central Park and execute me. Are you kidding me? Hysterical lunacy. And that mob never counts, okay? But when anyone says, hey, could you stop punching us in the face? They're like, look at the online mob. Look at the online mob. I mean, all we did was 1,000 attack pieces in a row against Bernie Sanders. And here we are having a panel discussion where we all agree that stopping Bernie is really, really, really important to the Republic.
And obvious.
And
you
yes.
have to do it.
Hey, remember the Stop Buttigieg movement? Oh, right, there isn't one because they love Buttigieg. They love him, they can't get enough of him. Besides which, he's easier to stop. Okay, so, but they never notice the irony of their vicious attacks against Bernie Sanders, which never ever count. And if anyone ever says, hey, could you not do that? Look at these fanatics online.
Yeah, why are you being so mean to me, you Nazis?
Exactly, I literally
don't understand it. I don't understand it, except that I do understand it. On the quoting thing, get the hell out of here. We quote people all the time. We read quotes where we agree with some of it and don't agree with part of it. And if it's something that is horrible, maybe a little bit of a caveat coming out of that graphic saying, well, obviously the reference to brown shirts is 100% right out. But let's talk about social media followings. There was none of that. And by the way, when I read graphics, because I'm a person and I'm fallible, sometimes if I really like the graphic, or if I don't, like if it's Trump, I'll put some flavor into the way I read it. And he did that at the end of his graphic. That was not just an objective reading. It certainly was not a critical reading. That was an enthusiastic reading. It was him as someone who's not supposed to express an opinion, even though he constantly does and did very much there, taking a piece of paper and then being able to read it so that he doesn't get in trouble. He's just quoting someone, even though he loves the discussion. And no one at that panel said, wait, what are you talking about, brown shirts? You're comparing people who are passionate about Medicare for all and student loan debt to a militia that puts the Nazis in power? Nobody. How many was there $8 million worth of salary at that table? Was there 60 years of experience at that table? Nobody brought up any sort of concerns with what he quoted.
And we've quoted, to John's point, we've quoted 1,000 people we don't agree with, and then we immediately say, look at how loathsome this quote is. He didn't say that. In fact, he followed up by saying a reference to how it reminds him of the MAGA mob outside. So Bernie Sanders, who wants to give everybody in the country health care so that their family members don't die, wants to give people higher wages, wants to serve the average person rather than the elites like Chuck Todd, is somehow the equivalent of Donald Trump, who says maybe there are good people on the side of the folks that chanted the Jews will not replace us. Donald Trump, who says there should be a Muslim ban. Donald Trump, who calls Mexicans rapists and criminals. Donald Trump, who gave tax cuts to the richest people in the country, including Chuck Todd. Okay, so now those two things are apparently equivalent. Well, some people say Hitler is a Nazi and others say Mother Teresa is a Nazi. Well, I guess we'll never know, but I did put them in the same sentence, that's it.
Yeah.
And then, I can't believe these goons that support Mother Teresa. This Mother Teresa mob is out of control. Just because we compared her to Hitler, why are they so mad?
Yeah, and look, so obviously because of what he chose to do last night when he got that and printed it out and had it and he wanted to bring it up, he wanted to have it there. A lot of people have questions for Chuck Todd. Scarily, in the future, Chuck Todd is gonna have questions for some important people because NBC News and MSNBC on Wednesday announced the 5 journalists who will moderate their Democratic primary debate in Las Vegas later this month. They include Lester Holt and also Chuck Todd, the guy who's going to be choosing and then asking questions of the guy he believes leads a mob of Nazis.
Okay, preposterous.
It's insane.
Look, if they said, first of all, hey, somebody one of the hosts of the Young Turks should be one of 5 moderators in a debate, I guarantee you heads would explode. They'd find that to be the funniest thing they ever heard. A progressive moderated debate, no way, that's biased. Well, you have 5 conservative people who are either Democrats or Republicans, I don't know, but none of them are progressive. None of them have ever been progressive. Out of all the debates and all the moderators, not in the Republican Party, but of the debates in the Democratic Party, not one has been progressive. And they're like, well, of course, and that's why questions are framed as the first 18 minutes of the last debate. Hey, everybody raise their hands if they think a democratic socialist will definitely lose. Let's talk about how democratic socialism is the worst and is unelectable and is gonna lose. Nobody ever asked the question, hey, last time a moderate to conservative Democrat actually did lose to Donald Trump. So does anybody want to raise their hand for why they think Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar have no chance of winning because they're exactly the same mold as a candidate that lost to Trump last time? Never framed that way because progressives are not allowed in at all. And they would find it outrageous if you allowed a progressive to ever have a voice. And then they say, oh, can you believe they're raising their voice online? Well, where the hell else would we raise it?
Yeah.
Where the hell else do we even have a voice?
Occasionally on Cuomo.
Yes, and that's about it.
That's about it. A couple other shows have had Ann on, that's good. So look, Chuck Todd rightfully being criticized for the brown shirt comments, but here's the issue. I do want this to be sort of a learning moment. They definitely won't learn, but it could be a learning moment for Chuck Todd and the other people that were on that panel about why these Bernie people are so angry all the time. Because you had the calling them an online mob that's the same as Trump, they're Nazis. Those would be high up on the list. But I want to show you a few other things that have appeared on MSNBC just in like recent experience, some on that same panel. So let's start there. Let's go to like a minute after the brown shirts comment.
This is a part of the campaign that we never had to worry about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the question becomes, what if we get to the convention and Bernie Sanders does not have anywhere near a majority, but he has a plurality. He has 35, 37% of the delegates, and he goes to the convention and says, I won more primaries than anyone else. I have more delegates than anyone else. I dare you to deny me the nomination.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Right. You don't have superdelegates anymore. I mean,
on the first ballot.
At least on the first ballot. You don't have the members of Congress who would be the elders. I mean, that was exactly the reform that the Bernie Sanders people demanded.
Oh, guys,
it's amazing.
That's amazing. They're so blinded by their own bias. They're like, what if Bernie Sanders made a logical case for why he has the most delegates? And they're like, well, obviously he should be defeated, so we wouldn't accept that. And I wonder if they'd get angry if we denied him the logical win, like that they assume. All of them assume at once. Well, obviously, we would deny Bernie Sanders. Obviously.
How will they respond when we deny him?
Yeah, even though in their own fact pattern, he won the most amount of delegates. They're like, well, obviously we would rig it so he doesn't win.
And he won the most primaries in their hypothetical.
Yes, that's right.
The vote, he won the vote.
But then these troublesome people, the unwashed masses, would complain about the rigging we just said we would do. Can you believe how meddlesome they are? After Bernie got the most votes, they'd want him to be the candidate. And then Andrea Mitchell comes in and goes, this is why it's so bad that we got rid of the super delegates who were the elites. See, the elites could have stopped Bernie in a situation like that. Now we're worried because of Bernie's reforms, we might accidentally have democracy in the Democratic Party. And none of them notice any of the irony. And they all just say it like, well, of course we would rig it against Bernie, and of course that's the right thing. And I can't believe that they would ever complain about us doing that. Did any producer, after they walked off the set, go, guys, next time you might want to not say the quiet part out loud?
Yeah.
Hey, you know
the part
what?
Where you steal the election.
Right. Maybe next time you want to at least pretend to be fair, because otherwise we're going to get some blowback, and it might be a little bit legitimate. What do you mean legitimate? Those are Nazis that are criticizing us when we steal the election.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure. I didn't watch after that point, but I love the idea that they then pivot to talking about Donald Trump talking about stealing elections. But anyway, so there's that. Okay, obviously we got to stop him from getting it in any way possible. Casey Hunt's MSNBC.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Okay, so Casey Hunt, I saw, said she was talking with an individual, and as the sort of lead into talking to that person, she says, well, if Buttigieg rises, it would leave the party with two candidates who've shown they have no ability to appeal to people of color.
What?
Bernie, as of today nationally, has an 8-point lead in African American voters. His vote in Iowa among Hispanic voters was overwhelming. What are you talking, like, Casey Hunt, I'm sure, considers herself a very serious journalist, and yet it's obviously false. All of the data contradicts it, and yet there will be no correction, there will be no apology, there will be no learning, there will be nothing.
Yeah, so Buttigieg for a while was getting 0% of the black vote in South Carolina as an example. And it's not just because he doesn't have name recognition, although that's an important part, and they should, to be fair to Buttigieg, they should mention that context. But he has a terrible record in South Bend, and almost every black leader in South Bend has come out and said, yeah, he fired the black fire chief, he demoted the black police chief, he nearly wiped out the black police force. Read Michael Harriet at The Root and Jonathan Larson here at TYT to see the story. So there's some real issues there, massive issues, right? Bernie, on the other hand, is not beating Buttigieg by 8 points. He's beating Biden, the second closest competitor, by 8 points among minority voters. Number one in the country.
Number one.
Number one in the country. But Casey Hunt says, well, he has a problem with minority voters like Buttigieg does.
No ability to appeal to people of color. No ability.
And
he's nothing.
You know what that is? It's alternative facts. It just is. So Trump does it from a right-wing perspective, and the mainstream media does it from an establishment perspective. But if you ever tell them that, they get so offended. They say, oh, look at these monsters online, saying that we're not doing good journalism. That might hurt my career 2 to 5%. Actually, don't worry, it'll help your career. If we criticize you, you'll probably get a promotion, okay? Oh, you were wrong on air and the Young Turks pointed it out and they're 100% right. Congratulations, you're now an anchor, okay?
You're moderating a debate.
Yeah, you're immediately moderating a debate. Not only, but they genuinely think like, oh my, that might hurt my career a little bit. They are so rude online. You called Bernie Sanders supporters Nazis. But you're not rude. You pretended that Bernie Sanders has no minority support when he has the most minority support. But that's not rude. That's not character assassination. But when we say, hey, could you please actually get the facts right? I can't, they're so offensive. They're so offensive. I was busy making millions of dollars as a journalist on air, and now I might only make 2.5 million instead of 2.6 million next year. You guys are so offensive to us.
Yeah, like it bothers me because I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter, but I'm just a white Bernie Sanders supporter. I can't speak for anyone, but I would trying to imagine that if you're not white and you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, Casey Hunt just like threw a tarp over millions of people. He had no appeal. So all of you who will be watching this right now and might be mad at us about it, you don't exist. You're literally not out there. It doesn't matter if you voted for Bernie Sanders, if you donated for Bernie Sanders, you've been following him for years, maybe you're canvassing for him, you're working on his campaign, you're knocking on doors in New Hampshire. You don't exist because he has no ability to appeal to anyone like you.
All right, look, and then when I say you should join us because without us, all you have is this pulp. Then they turn around and go, oh, are you trying to make money? What do you think your multi-billion-dollar media corporation does? You guys make money off of maintaining the current corrupt system, and you get all those money in politics ads, you get all the drug company ads, etc. So tyt.com/join. Without independent media, all you have is manufacturing consent, propaganda garbage that you're seeing on cable news. By the way, I'm gonna remind you one more time. That's MSNBC, not Fox News and not CNN. That's what Washington considers the liberal station, the progressive station, the one attacking Bernie Sanders 24/7 and lying about him non-stop.
I know. We got to play one more just because I want to see your reaction to it. So this, apologize for the cell phone quality of the video, but this is, I believe it's from last night on MSNBC talking about what might happen in New Hampshire.
The real thing that I'm looking for tonight is, of course, that key third place finish, which we were just talking about there in the break. Amy Klobuchar, the momentum is on her side. This would be a huge victory for Amy. In fact, I would almost argue that a third place finish for Amy would be stronger and more important than a first place finish for Bernie.
It's more important, stronger too.
I mean, they're their own parody, they're self-parody. I mean, at this point, The Onion couldn't write it like that. Seriously, she just said it with a straight face, you just saw it. Well, a strong third place finish would obviously be more important than the first place finish.
So I crunched some numbers. I had a 1 and I had a 3. And I don't know, it seems like there's something there. Can Andrew Yang help us with this math? I honestly don't know. We know going back how many different races, like you can't win in the Democratic primary if you don't win Iowa and New Hampshire. That's a pattern that'll get broken any day now, I know. But the idea that now it's been 100% flipped. Third place, because it's not out of that loserville first and second place, is the strongest position. Who cares about the first place?
Well, of course, when the mainstream media for a year straight was saying that Bernie Sanders couldn't possibly win, they meant he couldn't possibly come in third, the vaunted third place that they were all competing for. Remember when everybody was campaigning in New Hampshire, please vote for me third. Please, don't let me come in first or second, because that's totally irrelevant, okay?
Bernie historically does have, especially in this race, a hard time coming in third. He's raised the most money, the most money from women in this race as well. He's leading the national polls now, the most non-white supporters. Like, come on, Bernie, stop trying so hard.
please, we need you to come in third so you can win. But wait a minute, you mentioned Andrew Yang, but by their logic there, wouldn't the 6th place finisher be better off than the 3rd place finisher?
Twice as good.
How far do we go? Okay, wait a minute, I hadn't thought about the 9th place finisher. Here comes Michael Bennett. They say it with a straight face.
Yeah. Quick hypothetical. If coming in 3rd, it ends up being Bernie, stronger, right?
Yeah. Oh, could you imagine if Bernie came in 3rd? You know what they would say? He's done. I mean, who comes in 3rd? 3rd is for losers. How could you possibly come in 3rd?
No, you're crazy. They would be like, Chris Matthews would be like, 3rd? No, Bernie, calm down, Bernie.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
So imagine if Klobuchar wins, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's disappointing. We were hoping she'd come in 3rd.
And look, if she comes in 3rd, that's better than I would have predicted, yes. And if she somehow wins, that's huge. You know why? Because 1st is best.
Yeah, all right, guys, look, by the way, we get it. If she beats Biden, that's devastating for Biden.
That's
it's good
huge,
for
yes.
her. And then she would be among the conservative candidates like Buttigieg and Klobuchar coming out of New Hampshire. You could make that point, there's nothing wrong with that point. You just can't say that it would be better than finishing 1st. After, first of all, because math, and secondly, because you just spent a year telling us how important it is coming in 1st in New Hampshire until you saw the polling where Bernie's coming in 1st and all of a sudden not important at all.
Yeah.
How could they not see their own bias? They're the most biased people in America.
They might be. Would you like the sort of punchline to all these setups that we've had?
This is not a punchline yet?
No, well, there's been a few, but let's go one more video. I would say that this might be the punchline.
Okay.
I want to say the reason I went for Bernie is because of MSNBC. And
go on.
I think it is completely cynical to say that he's lost 50% of his vote from the last time when there were 2 candidates. Now there are multiple wonderful candidates who would be great presidents and people that I think that we can unify and get behind. But the kind of the stop Bernie cynicism that I heard from a number of people, I watch MSNBC constantly, so I heard that from a number of commentators, and so that it made me angry enough. I said, okay, Bernie's got my vote.
Oh, yes.
I love her.
That's also my new favorite person on planet Earth.
Watch TYT. But yeah, you love her. And by the way, like, she's not some crazy digital brown shirt. She said, I'm voting for Bernie, but I think there are multiple wonderful candidates who'd be great presidents. I'm inclined at this point to not even agree with her on that, but she's very she has multiple people that hypothetically she could support, but she's been driven to this point because of the obvious bias. And so that's Ari Melber, right? Yeah, Ari Melber's there, and he seems like a perfectly nice guy in his show, but his go on joke, okay, no, but you go on and listen. And I'm not saying he's as bad as the other ones that we've been showing or whatever, but there is something to be learned here, and I know that you have a massive financial incentive to never learn it, and if you learn it, to never acknowledge it. But there is a reason that people don't like you and don't trust you, and you reinforce it on a daily basis. We showed you a few clips. These all came out in the last 16 hours. What if we extended our reach back a week?
Yeah, so look, that's a person who says she watches MSNBC all the time. So I'm gonna presume that she's not necessarily watching TYT. Just without us even saying anything, without any prodding, she watched on her own, was like, oh no, they're obviously biased against Bernie. To the point where it's making me mad, even though I like the other candidates. And it's made me so mad that I'm gonna vote for Bernie because the liberal channel is so obviously biased against him.
That's amazing.
Wow, okay. Now imagine for a second that everybody in the country got to watch MSNBC and Fox News and CNN, got to watch all of them, but they got to watch TYT equally. I think Bernie would win by what? By 20 points, 30 points? So, and I'm being 100% serious. Look, already a lot of people watch this, and hey, look at that, he has a huge lead among young people. Okay, so, but guys, if you heard that Medicare for All takes away your insurance, from those, all 3 agree, right, of those cable channels. Then you turn to us and you found out, yeah, it takes away your private insurance and gives you better insurance with expanded coverage. If you heard from them that Medicare for All costs $32 trillion, And then you turn to us and you found out, oh, but it also, what they didn't tell you is it saves 34 trillion. And on and on and on. If you heard from them that Bernie doesn't do well with minorities, and then we actually showed you the polling where he is the top candidate with minorities, and the list goes on. If the whole country saw that, progressives would be crushing, as it is that he's about to win, right? But imagine what a difference it would be if you didn't just have propaganda against progressives. If you actually represented our point of view, not more than others, just equally. If we were 1/4 of the media in this country, it'd be good night, Irene. They wouldn't stand any chance at all. And that is part of the reason why they never let progressives on TV. TYT.com/join. I mean, thank God for the internet, because if the internet didn't exist, there wouldn't be shows like ours and the other shows in the TYT network, and you wouldn't be able to get this information, and all you would have is the propaganda on television. And I think the internet has made a giant difference, and that's why it looks like Bernie Sanders is on the edge of victory now, even overcoming all of that propaganda stacked against him.
Yeah. First break?
Yes. We'll be right back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Khalisti Celine says, nice to see you, Cenk. There's a lot of comments like that. Thank you, guys. I love you. Megan E says, happy birthday to John's wife.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
That is nice.
For her.
Cray Souffle says, I love that lady. Find her, Cenk. I assume you don't mean John's wife, that you mean the MSNBC woman there.
Yeah, okay. I love her, but yeah.
Okay.
She does watch TYT.
I know. Hey, Emma's in New Hampshire. Maybe she will find her. In fact, Emma will be on our New Hampshire coverage, so don't miss that. David Dayan also with us. It's going to be a great night. In terms of coverage, we don't know what's going to happen, of course. We just know the polling. Bjorn Dada writes in, I'm 59 years old. I don't need Chuck Todd calling me a brown shirt. I'm not an online mob. I'm someone who has lived in Sweden and knows firsthand what Bernie's trying to bring to the US. Organic winemaker, no, I can't read your full name. You got to help me out on that. Anyway, he writes in, MSNBC et al. Are the real online mobs. On YouTube Super Chat, if Anna ruled the world writes in.
She taking time off and typing?
Yeah, oh, I like that. Oh, nice one. If Anna ruled the world from Munich, Germany at the Munich Security Conference. Anyway, I emailed MSNBC and asked them to report only facts. Well, I love that you did that. And Decognition says the establishment floods average people with their perspective 24/7. 3 weeks left until Super Tuesday. If you don't knock doors and phone bank to share your perspective, who will? Yes, every vote matters. This time to get involved. On the post game, which is just for members, and the first comments I read were all members, tyt.com/join to become a member, or you could do a YouTube channel membership for the Young Turks by clicking the join button down below the video if you're watching on YouTube. Anyway, I did a story about me phone banking for Bernie Sanders. It was both really interesting and really funny.
Yeah.
So if you're a member or become a member, go check that out. It's the post game about Kubaku.
Oh yes, and I probably should have talked to them in the break. But do you want to read? Do you want? No. Okay. Well, we're gonna have some exciting news that was announced earlier today, but later on. So you're gonna have to keep watching. Lucky you. Okay. With that, why don't we jump into the breaking news?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got some dramatic breaking news in the developing story involving Roger Stone's sentencing, if it happens, and that is that Aaron Zielinski, a Justice Department prosecutor who asked a judge to sentence Roger Stone to between 7 to 9 years in prison, has withdrawn from the former Trump aide's case after reports that officials would seek to reduce the sentencing recommendation. So Aaron Zielinski put that out. We're gonna walk through the timeline later. But then once the DOJ and Trump started to put pressure saying, no, we're not gonna do what federal guidelines say we should, he has backed off. And he was the first. Now the four attorneys who had signed the initial note after all this new pressure have all apparently withdrawn or resigned or been forced out from the case.
So in politics, there's this event known as the Saturday Night Massacre, when Nixon kept firing one person after another after they wouldn't do his political bidding and cover up his case. Now, in the Trump administration, there is no such thing. There is no one with principle. So when, as you'll see in this story, when Trump says, don't follow the law, Department of Justice says absolutely, sir, because it's led by the lawless Bill Barr, who should be disbarred as soon as he's out of office. Anyway, we'll tell you all the details of that. In this case, it's kind of like a Tuesday afternoon suicide rather than massacre because, and I fear putting that kind of context in a political story, but the bottom line is they were not fired. All four of these lawyers actually had principles and said, we are not going to break the law and twist the law and bend the law to benefit Donald Trump politically.
Yeah.
We prosecuted the case, we were right. If you're trying to fix the case afterwards for political reasons, we resign, we're gone. Yeah. That is a wonderful act of courage, bravery, and they should be heartily applauded for that and eventually one day promoted.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I liked about what you just did there? You used an analogy and then realized that it had bad connotations, so you corrected yourself in real time. Chuck Todd could learn something from that. But anyway, yes, and so look, there's a couple points that I do want to focus on here. So just in case you didn't know, initially, Justice Department prosecutors suggested 7 to 9 years. That's just federal guidelines. I know that if you've watched Sean Hannity's show, he's freaking out over it. They're all acting like this is insane. That's just what you get for the crimes that he committed. He was convicted in November of 7 counts of obstructing and lying to Congress and witness tampering related to his contacts with the Trump campaign regarding WikiLeaks in 2016. The government wrote at the time that such a sentence, 7 to 9 years, would accurately reflect the seriousness of his crimes and promote respect for the law. Because we can't have a functioning system if powerful people are able to obstruct justice, tamper with witnesses, knowing that even if they're charged with something, in the end, the president is going to end up getting them off. They need to pay some sort of price to stop everyone from doing that. But look,
John, sorry to interrupt for a second. I just want to give people context. So 7 to 9 years, the federal guidelines, and I trust their judgment, especially given what they've done afterwards, right? But you could actually get 20 years for witness tampering. So I don't want anybody thinking like, oh, they were throwing the book at him and they were giving him the maximum. No, they came with a moderate proposal within the federal guidelines. And so, of course, since Roger Stone was protecting Donald Trump, that he's his capo, the head mobster complains about it, and that's why these 4 lawyers have resigned. But they were not throwing the book at him. This is what the federal guidelines say is, I don't want to say a minimum, but it's nowhere near the maximum.
Yeah, and even that not maximum was met by a Trump tweet that says, hey, this is horrible and very unfair situation. The real crimes were on the other side, as nothing happens to them. Cannot allow this miscarriage of justice. I've got a different one in mind, and so we don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. It's possible at this point that Donald Trump doesn't really need to get involved beyond tweeting. William Barr knows why he was chosen, he knows why he's there, and so he's going to jump on this sort of thing. But it is also possible that Donald Trump is getting involved. And here's the thing, this whole thing looks insane to rational people, that this guy committed crimes. He, because he's not Trump, might actually go to jail, as so many of Trump's closest confidants and associates have. But Trump feels like, well, I mean, I've committed crimes in full open view and I was just acquitted. I could shoot someone in the face, they wouldn't do anything about it. So why shouldn't he do this, honestly? They pushed out Vindman and his brother. And now he's saying the military should look at disciplinary action against Lieutenant Colonel Vindman as well. Him being fired isn't enough. He also should be attacked by the military. And so remember like during the trial and immediately after, when we were talking about Trump is looking for revenge, all of his associates were saying that. Like that wasn't just like speculative talk. Like this is what it looks like. He's going to protect the people that have been good to him, and he's going to viciously attack till the end of their days the people who have turned on him by acknowledging the truth.
So just a quick note on Vindman. He technically was not fired. He was removed from the White House. So he could get another job in the Army, but we don't know what's going to develop with that yet. So in terms of this situation, look at the way that Trump frames it. He says, well, they didn't arrest people on the other side. Well, that's not how it works. That you betray your own sense of what so-called justice is when you say, I don't care what the law was. I want you to round up my political enemies, and since you didn't do that, I want you to let go of my capos who are breaking the law on my behalf. No, this isn't like, oh, let's arrest people equally on the Democratic and Republican side. The question is, did they break the law? If a Democrat broke the law, the Young Turks, if you watch it at all, we would definitely be in favor of them going to jail, right? We're honest and principled, unlike these guys. Look, now I'm gonna get to the funniest part of all. So Well, you want to tell them what Bill Barr said to go along with Donald Trump, and then I'll give you the explanation that the Justice Department.
You're talking about the update to the.
Yes.
Okay, so the Justice Department announced that they were going to revise the recommendations for sentencing. Department leadership found the recommendation to be extreme and excessive and disproportionate to Stone's offenses, although as we pointed out, it could have been worse. DOJ leaders expect a new filing to be submitted to clarify the department's position. It'll be an interesting clarification if the number suddenly is much smaller or non-existent.
Yeah.
That's not a clarification, that's just changing it.
So that's why the Justice Department lawyers resigned. Because number one, they just got thrown under a bus. After spending a lot of time on this case and the government's resources and being right and getting a conviction, their own boss turns on them and says, oh, what they did was extreme and terrible, right? And you saw the quote. Not only that, they say now you must reduce the sentence, even though you know it's not the right thing to do, and it's obviously political. So they're like, no, we're not gonna do that. We'd rather not have a job, and we'd rather be driven from government and not do the thing that we love to do, and that's our career, than go along with your political and outrageous order.
Yeah.
So men of character. Now, here's a hilarious part. So the Justice Department sees obviously Trump's tweet, and they're like, yes, sir, of course, sir. We would never punish any of your criminal associates, sir, right? But no, Carrie Kupek, a Justice Department spokeswoman, says the White House did not communicate with the agency on Monday or Tuesday, except for that public tweet to the whole world. Okay.
So it's a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, okay. No, she says, and that the decision to reverse course was made right before Donald Trump's tweet.
Damn, I thought we had him.
Oh my God, well, hey, look, if he came in right before the tweet, I guess there's nothing we can do about it. It must have been independent. It's preposterous. They went to court, they said he should get 7 to 9 years. They went through the regular process. Trump tweets about it in the middle of the night. Right afterwards, they say, oh, sorry, never mind, rip up the law, who cares? We have a lawless president, let's just make sure that his buddy gets off. And then they go, oh no, we had made that decision independently. If you had made it independently, why did you submit the court papers in the first place? Oops.
Okay, we have 2 big Bloomberg stories. So why don't we take our second break, buy us a little bit of time. We want to do that all at once. Bloomberg, yes. Awful audio, and then we also get to look at Donald Trump's stop and frisk record after this.